Hey everyone, here I am back in my studio, I guess you could call it. It's my home office, but this is where I shoot most of my videos. Right over here is where I grow my microgreens. And today I want to share with you something I get asked about really frequently. And that is how to grow bull's blood beets microgreens. So I'm going to show you how I do it today. Still a work in progress. I'm still kind of tweaking my method a little bit, but I've got a method that works really well. It should work for you. Just be cautious because beets are tricky. It's an advanced crop. This is not like for your first time, beginner. You kind of want to have a few different growing experiences under your belt before you jump in and just do something like beets. Though I'm going to show you something that should work for you, something that works for me. So let's get started. I'm going to start off with some trays. These are extra shallow trays that I got from my buddy Pepe from Down Under in Australia. Good friend of mine sent me these trays. I'm going to use these, but you don't have to have shallow trays. You can use a regular like 1.5 2 inch deep trays. I'm going to take my bowl of Frosted Flakes. If you don't have one of these, then you won't know how to measure your soil, so I'm sorry I can't help you there. But anyways, I'm going to start off with about 2.25 scoops of the Frosted Flakes here. Just kind of spread that on in. Just a little bit more. All right. I'm just going to spread this along, get it all nice and even in here. So what I was going for here, and I achieved in a perfect fashion, was I wanted to make sure that I left the soil just below the top of the tray. If you have a deep tray, then you'll be well below, not a problem. But for these trays, I wanted to leave the soil just a little bit under because after I put the seed on, I'll be putting a little bit more soil on top. Now I'm just going to water this in pretty heavily, and then I am going to plant my beets. Now I have plenty of water here. As you can see, it's still kind of floating around and jiggling. So I'll give that just a minute or so to just soak that water in. The soil that I was using was very dry. It's been out of the bag for a while. Now what I have here is 80 grams exactly of bull's blood beet seed that I got from True Leaf Market. Use my link in the description if you'd like to buy from True Leaf Market. It really helps me out. Appreciate it. But anyways, a lot of you are very particular on exact measurements. I typically am not. I'll take it right out of the bag and sprinkle it on until I think it looks about right. But because a lot of you are particular, I thought I'd give you an approximate, where to start. I'm not even sure if this is exactly how much I would normally use, but we'll go with that. 80 grams. So I'm just going to sprinkle this on. Now you really want to keep this as even as possible and not have it too clumped up. And that's the case with all microgreens. You don't really want them clumped up too much. Certain things like sunflower and peas, really, it's not a big deal. They can be pretty clumped. And I can tell you that 80 grams is more than what I would normally plant. I think 60 grams would probably be closer to the amount I would normally do, just if you want to know. I know some people go up to 100 grams, some people go maybe more than that. But I like to grow with a lot of room for airflow, and growing light works for me. And if you're just starting out with any microgreen, it's a good idea to just start lighter than you think you need. If it looks like the seed is really spread out and really coating your whole tray, that might be too much. It's a good idea to give your seeds a little bit of a room to breathe, especially with beets, because beets could have multiple plants come out of one seed, and so you really don't want to have too much. So this was planted dry, and I didn't water it at all except for the soil. But I have some spray here of this is just water. It's a linen water, but it's water. And I am just going to spray down the seeds pretty heavily to get a nice even coat. Make sure that they're nice and wet. Looks pretty wet to me. Now I'm going to take about 3/4 of a scoop of my Frosted Flakes, and I'm going to spread that out evenly over the seed. Now the idea here is really to just have soil touching the seed everywhere. It doesn't have to be very thick. You just want to make sure that the soil is touching the seed. What this does is it helps have the seed or the sprout to be able to separate itself from the seed hull. Just that little bit of soil really makes a big difference. I try not to put it on too thick. There are people that have great success with putting a good 1/2 inch or so of soil right on top of the seed. Doesn't work for me. You can give that a shot. The thicker the soil, the less seed hulls you're going to have, but you also might risk bringing the soil up with all the seeds, and that'll create like one big shelf. I've mentioned this a bunch of times in my videos. That one big shelf will be hard to break up, and it's going to collapse back down on top of your nice tender little microgreens and crush them. And so I don't do that because it just doesn't work for me. But if it works for you, that's great. So give it a light little mist of some water here. That's it. So from here you have two options. You can either just dome this off with an upside down tray and leave it in the dark. I mean, you could put it under lights, but if you have a blacked out tray on it, it's okay. It's still going to be dark. Or you can stack. Now, when it comes to beets, stacking, it works well, but it's not necessary. And if you don't need to, I don't really recommend it. If you need to because of space and you're planting a bunch of stuff and you have to have room to go up, then go ahead and stack it. It's fine. Just keep an eye on it, because if those beets really start sprouting, they're a pretty tender crop and they won't really pick up the tray below them like sunflower will, or radish, or peas. They'll actually lift the tray above them up. Beets won't do that. So the beets will start growing kind of flat. And then it'll be really difficult for them to kind of straighten themselves back up after you unstack them. So what I do when I stack them is I keep an eye on it and I look at it every day. After about 4 or 5 days, most of them will be sprouted. And at that same time, most of the other crops I planted are ready to be uncovered as well. And so at that point, you can either put a blackout dome on top of them, or you can just put them straight under lights. The blackout dome is nice because you're holding in the moisture and you're just letting stuff really soak in. But you can put them straight under lights, which is what I typically do. So after 4 or 5 days, straight under lights, they're great. If you enjoy all my content that I provide completely for free, please consider becoming a Patreon. Any amount really helps out. It helps support me, and it's worth it for me to make these videos all the time. I do the best I can. If you can support, that's great. It's not required. I'll continue to make videos, and if you go up to a $10 per month supporter, you're automatically entered into some really awesome giveaways. Now after 2 weeks of growing, about 4 to 5 days being covered, and then straight under lights for about 18 hours a day, this is what you'll get. So these look fantastic. These are pretty much ready to harvest, but one of the nice things about beets is they don't have to be harvested right now. You can continue to grow these for another week without any issue at all. Just gotta make sure you keep them watered. Now there are some seed holes still on here. Trying to show you that the best I can. But there's not that many. It's not bad at all. So you can see it's a nice even tray. I didn't get any dying off spots, no damping off, no crush spots from having too thick of a soil on there. So I think if you follow this method, you'll be pretty happy with your results. But like I said, you need to get some experience before you just go growing beets. Beets can be tricky. If you're not growing already, get growing. It's easy. There's a million videos out there on YouTube, not just mine, but tons of people making really good videos. And you can do this. You can do it for yourself. You can do it for a small business like I do on a side business, or you can do it and give it to your friends, your family, eat it yourself, whatever you want to do. Go ahead and give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. Microgreens are one of the best things to grow indoors in the winter because it's so quick. 7 to 10 days and you've got fresh produce you grew yourself indoors with minimal light, minimal electricity usage, and you've just got to eat something that you grew. I mean, how many people really get to do that in the middle of the winter? So, thanks again, guys, for watching. Have a great night.